Welcome to Leadership, the Secret Sauce, the podcast where we talk to extraordinary coaches and leaders to dive into the realms of leadership and coaching. We're your hosts, Dave Lipsky and Matt Dodson. So let's jump in with another guest and find out their answer to the question, what is your secret sauce?
All right, so we're moving to our next Model E, organic coaching culture. And Matt, tell us a little bit about what we might experience in this organic coaching culture.
Well, with the organic coaching culture, it is the predominant management style, not necessarily just done by coaches, but by employees, by the workers, by the leaders throughout the whole organization. So everyone feels like, hey, look, this is the coach approach, I would say. It features continuous coaching conversations. So there is a sense of, I would describe it as safety. I don't know, like where at all levels we have a desire to ask lots of questions rather than begin to tell. And that also, in terms of the description, coaching is a part of there is a line item for coaching. That's straight up into the definition of what a coaching culture is from ICF or the conference board or HRCI that have created it. It is part of it. It's an expectation that this would be how we would develop. So let me just sort of ask this. Okay, if this is the organic coaching model is the holy grail, or what people would say is, oh, we want this organic coaching culture. What does it really look like in practice? And have you ever seen it? Maybe I would just say that.
Yeah, well, teasing at the organizational imposter syndrome, who would admit it? So I think in terms of, I've seen pieces of it. I've seen it inside groups where I could say their leaders really get it. They follow a coaching model, the way that they lead. They ask questions first to their staff. They engage them. Their ongoing development conversations, right? And in pockets of the organization. So I have seen it with really enlightened leaders. But it's also a rare commodity. I've not seen it enough that it cuts across an entire organization. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I would just say I've seen it in parts of the organization, and but I've seen it mostly in service types of organizations where it is about relationships. It's evident it's about relationships. It's much harder in a manufacturing environment. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, well, we have the democratized coaching, therefore we have a coaching culture. Or, hey, if we've got supervisor skills, coaching skills for supervisors, then we have a coaching culture. That is an aspect of it. But I think what we're looking for is it is something that is felt inside the organization where you're like, you know what, rather than being like, hey, let me sort of take a step back. If I'm having a problem or if I'm having a challenge and I go to my supervisor, I'm going to my supervisor because I don't know the answer rather than have to have an answer. And my supervisor is going to ask me questions to pull out or draw it out of me around what I think I could do or would do or should do, and then help me discover what is the best direction based upon that conversation, and allow me to really own it versus give me the answer in my performance dialogue discussion so I can go and follow orders. So I think that's probably.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, we've talked about this in the past, like doing versus being, like doing coaching versus being a coach, and not just the big C, somebody who is a professional coach, but also the act of coaching. Are you truly? I think to your point, like if you're genuinely really asking, there's a difference between checking the box of asking and moving on. Let me ask you. So how do you distinguish between like organizations that truly have that coaching cultures versus the ones that just talk about it?
I'd probably find out from some of the admins of whether they really have a coaching culture, because that to me is one of the greatest barometers of whether a coaching culture exists. Not necessarily, hey, am I giving it to my hourly staff? It's, what does it feel like when you don't know the answer? Are you being told always what to do versus being asked and helping you develop? So I think some of those people that are really carrying on some of the business, of making the business work, I think those are the people that could tell you, oh, you know what, we really do. And I feel like I am a valued member of this organization, and then I'm being asked questions rather than told what to do. So that's probably what. How about you, Dave? That's
Yeah, it's the same with me. I always think of speedometer and odometer of like to what extent are people really valued for their contributions, like to the everybody in the organization at all levels, like how you treat everybody, and to the extent that people feel like understood and welcome for like who they are and what they bring. And there's a lot of overlap there, but I think the key is, your this behavior happens when the camera's not on, when nobody's recording, right? When you're not putting on a show.
yeah. So Dave, one of the things that I think I discovered, a coaching culture can be extinguished when the HRVP leaves, or maybe the learning and development lead manager goes away. What um, what else have we seen that really sort of kills or sustains something like this? How do you keep this? Say you feel like, hey, look, we're making some progress. It's not perfect. We have some of the various pieces of the different model. Um, I don't won't say we have a totally coaching culture. I'm embarrassed to say there's parts of it that are great. But now we have a new L&D manager coming in. How do we sustain it, or what happens?
Yeah, great question. Look at your next promotion list. And if you look at that list and you see people that actually, are, believe and embody that coaching mindset, they're asking more questions than they're telling people. An awesome sign. And I think any other place where performance is measured, do we include competencies and capabilities that are fit that coaching approach, that coaching culture. So those are some of the things that I look for. What do you look for, Matt?
Yeah, it just reminds me of, when you were mentioning is, so Satya Nadella, when he really was transformed by Carol Dweck's work on mindset, like a learn it all versus a know it all culture. And that seems to be, I would say some of it has to do with leaders at the top. And I think you also need some of those people at the bottom that are really saying, hey, look, this is kind of on the sandwich model. As people sort of rise in the organization, they have to come up understanding the value and experience of coaching and what it has brought. I don't want to ever underestimate the value of enough supervisor, like frontline leaders, managers, and supervisors experiencing coaching to say, this was so valuable that as I continue to go up in the organization, this is something that I want. So where they begin to say, they're now at the executive leadership team level, and they're pulling on it, and they're saying, hey, look, I really want coaching. Whether that the changing learning and development manager comes and goes, those leaders are saying, hey, look, this is so important to me. Can I get this? So I think that's what's really important.
So let's keep going with this, Matt. I'm giving you the CEO hat of the organization. So when you've achieved coaching as the standard, this is how we work, and
Yeah.
then there are people that won't or can't. What do you do?
This is where I think it's really important. I really, as a coaching manager or a manager of like the coaching practice, I really just want to work with the people that want to be worked with. And whether that is an attractional model or really when you're under resourced or you don't have as much resources in your learning and development organization and you can only do what you can do, like you can't throw enough money at it, then you really need to work with the people that want it and they're going to have the greatest impact on sort of proliferating or evangelizing that message like, hey, look, this is how we develop. We ask questions because it's those people that would be like, you know what, this was the best supervisor I ever had. I went in to her office in our monthly performance dialogue. I had no idea. I didn't have to have all the answers, but she really drew it out of me and just made me want to work even harder for her and for the organization. I think that that message is very attractive and that people would want to do that. And I have heard in countless numbers of times where a leader will say, hey, look, I considered coaching almost like corporate therapy until they experience it themselves. And they're like, this is not corporate therapy. So it's a little bit more attractional rather than like demanding.
Yeah, it's an important point, and if coaching is truly important, then the people that value it and engage in it should get promoted, right? Have opportunities faster than the rest of the organization, the rest of the leadership pool. So, what's the challenge when you're bringing in new leaders, when you're trying to onboard them? How do you address that from if you are at an organic coaching culture and you want to maintain it?
Well, I think coaching skills for supervisors would be like part of your new supervisor onboarding. Like it seems to be like, hey, look, this is how we lead, or this is how we supervise, or this is how we lead others, is we take a coach mindset approach to it. Versus it's the more being rather than telling. And that's what we focus on, is because we do believe the inner game is going to dictate the outer game. And as a leader, you need to really think about some of those things of how you show up and what comes out of your mouth in terms of the types of questions that you ask versus telling. And I think that sort of mindset shift is what's needed for those new leaders. And I think it's, what got you here won't get you there. It's like, hey, look, now you're really going to have to reinforce this message that you will have to succeed through others rather than just solely your own performance that may have got you here. So, Dave, if I'm going to ask this question, if we've seen coaching cultures like struggle with tough decisions, how do you balance support, like supporting the organization, and accountability? Hey, I want my numbers. I want to figure out how many. What are we doing? It's almost like how do you sort of draw the balance between the sort of the behavioral and the sort of the values type of coaching. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a really deeper question that you have to go past the surface on this one, because I think when we talk about coaching, coaching is a choice, and sometimes performance management is not a choice, right? Like you have to still have strong accountability systems inside organizations, and you can be a performance oriented culture, like we achieve high results, and the one of the key ways that we do that is we utilize coaching. So there's a couple of things, like as you dive below the surface of that statement, like what I just said, is you have to position coaching as a way to increase and sustain performance, right? And the best example I have is, when you look at even teams that have been able to achieve short-term results, you can often find a lot of yelling and a lot of like short-term accountability, and then you look at teams that are able to be successful over the longer haul, and what you see is a lot more coaching behavior where the leader is not always pushing the rock up the hill. You have people that have capability, they're sharing it, there's peer coaching going on. It creates a different kind of environment. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, what you mentioned was this idea around when I've been on large mega capital projects. I'm thinking primarily of these two different projects. When you go back to those people, they met their goal on time, on budget. They delivered. They would describe the experience of being on that project as a culture-driven project, not necessarily the leader, screaming and yelling them to get the results. And it was a career best experience for them. For some reason, the experience of being on this culture driven project had the effect of really changing these leaders. So where after they leave, it's noticed in the organization, and the organization draws on those very people that were in that culture driven project for promotion, for future, like more responsibility. Hands down, the organization's going through whatever it is, those people on that culture driven project get selected. Now, I don't know why. Maybe it's the charisma of the leaders that were getting those people selected, but I would say for some reason, that culture driven project had a big impact inside of the organization for a long period of time. And the next project wants the same thing. Hey, look, we think this has a way of sustaining inside the organization around how we do things. And, they were, on time and on budget to get to their project goals in the same way. And they would say, well, this was a culture driven project. It didn't mean that they, towards the end, they're like, hey, we want to finish strong and let's make sure we're really focused on the task at hand. It did, it was sort of that both and. So they focused on some of the behaviors that got them there, as well as maintaining this discussion of like, hey, this is the values of this culture. This is the values of this project. So.
What happens when like market pressures conflict with those coaching values, right? Of the deeper culture that you're talking about building?
Well, I think that's when you really find out, like, is there a value in it? Coaching has to, at the end of the day, it has to deliver results, and they have to be able to see. It can't just be a nice conversation. Like at the end of the day, someone has to say, "Look, what are you going to do? We've talked about this. Now, what's that going to change?" So that conversation has to be different. And I think at some point in time, in each of those coaching conversations, those coaches have to say, hey, how has this affected how you show up at work and the results that you're seeing? I think that is because when there are economic pressures to reduce the cost or whatever it happens to be, they will keep you if they feel like you are being value added or not. If you're not and you're just nice to have, I mean, like one of our friends that lost her job, like, hey, look, I stopped asking, was this value add or was I just nice to have in the conversation? Was I asking unique questions or was it really valuable? And I think that's an impression we need to make on coaches if we're managing coaches inside or that are external coaches. Hey, we want to be sure that to the business, their perception is you're adding a certain value to this. I would not be getting or not be doing what I'm doing if you were not coaching me. So, yeah. Dave, how do organizations prevent coaching from being a crutch or an excuse? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've played around with a lot of language around this, and I'll tell you what resonated for me. You know, we talk about performance coaching, development coaching, right? Team coaching, and what I noticed is if there is a belief that coaching is connected to high performance, right? High performance team coaching, high performance individual coaching. It's not just the language; it's really the belief in terms of what it can contribute, and then and then it be able to harvest examples of it working is one of the biggest challenges, right? Of providing evidence that this worked. And we've come across these challenges where, the leaders and teams, I would say, have to experience that coaching, right? To embrace it, to believe that it's really valuable. There's a lot of this that's not as tangible, not as quantitative. And we still need to add the quantitative. How
Yeah.
about you, Matt? How do you prevent it from becoming a crutch?
Um, well, for me, like this gets into the practical side of being a coach, of saying, "Hey, look, this is for a certain period of time. Like this does have an end." And as a coach, I want to ask that question when I get to the 6 months. If I continue to coach them at the 9-month mark, if I continue to coach them all the way through the 1 year, is this still adding any value to you? Or what value is this adding? Because I want them to be able to say, hey, this has changed things for me. I wouldn't have gone this direction before had you not been my coach. And I think we could see that in terms of if we were to ask for testimonials from the coach or from the client about the coach. I think we need to see that. And I think that happens inside the organic coaching culture is you get people that are on the receiving end of coaching that would be willing to share with your learning and development or your HR group. Like, look, this is actually what has changed for me as an employee. This is what I've learned. Now, there are some democratized coaching models that capture some of that data for you in terms of asking for feedback after every session. So some of your boutique coaching, as well as your internal coaching, you're going to have to figure out a way to ask for that, because someone's just not going to necessarily get it, or it has to be set as an expectation that this is something that you're going to ask for. So,
Yeah, I think the value proposition in organic coaching culture of being able to brand your coaching as something that adds deeper value, right? You're managing that brand also, right? You're managing the perception of people by substance, the substance of the impact that coaching has, and the more people that can experience that substance, that approach, I think the more sustainable that coaching culture is.
yeah. Well, Dave, this sort of concludes all of our discussion of our 5 different models. If someone was interested in diving a little bit deeper, they're certainly welcome to reach out to us and get in touch with us. If you'd like to discuss more, we do have a more thorough assessment rather than just a general discussion for these. We're happy to talk some more and hear what questions you may have, or whether we would have anything that you would have a blend of, or to be on your company's coaching culture journey, as I would say. So reach out to us. You can find us. You can find me at charactermatterscoaching.com. Reach out to me, and I have a direct connection to Dave Lipsky, and so we'll be able to work with you from there. With that, we hope you have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast, please share it with another coach or leader. Make sure you go to the show notes to get all the resources from today's episode.